Old McCG had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. And on that farm they had a Leviathan, E-I-E-I-O. With a bug here and another bug there, here a bug, there a bug, everywhere. Even some bugs are bugged. Old McCG had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Xerath Prevails. Today, we're going to talk about which Galactic Legend or Galactic Legend level farm to go for first. I've been working on a new player guide. Still takes forever, guys, and I wanted to put this one out as just kind of a stopgap for that. I've been putting a video like this out every 3 to 6 months as I can, just to kind of update it and make sure that everyone is, I don't know, like you have my take on which things to farm first, because it's something I get asked a lot. I like to be able to tell people, hey, I discussed it in way more depth in a video, and so if things have changed. The last one I put out was in January. I'll actually link that in the video description if you're interested in looking at it. I'll even link the one I did like the previous September or whenever. That was the last one I did. So that being said, folks, let's jump in and say thanks to all my patrons. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for everything that you do. I truly appreciate all of your support and everything, guys. You truly are. You're all the MVPs somehow. It's true, guys. And guys, just a reminder, if you want to support this channel for free, all you've got to do is hit that thumbs up button, like, subscribe, comment, and mount the algorithm, guys. It's a good time for all involved. I have it on good authority. Have I ever mounted the algorithm? Stay tuned and maybe you'll find out. You probably won't. Now here's the infographic that I just put out. I've updated this a few different times recently, but you can find it, the most updated version, on my Discord server. You can find the link to that in my video description. Go check it out, take it up, you can download it for free. All of that, it shows how expensive each of these farms are in terms of relics, in terms of Carbanti and Kyrotech. Those are kind of like the baseline ways you can kind of measure each character's expense instead of having to show like every single piece of gear. So if it's not 100% perfectly applicable across the board, it's pretty close, I think. So go check that out if you want, guys. But a lot of this is, it draws a pretty interesting picture of like the JABBA farm has way fewer relics it required than like Lord Vader, for instance. But if you look at how much Carbanti and Kyrotech it costs, I mean, it's not quite as much as Lord Vader, but it paints a better picture than a lot of people are. They're like, wow, JABBA's so much cheaper than Lord Vader. And I'm like, well, like on some levels, sure, I guess. Like Lord Vader also has a lot of usable characters on its farm, as opposed to JABBA, or as opposed to, yeah, JABBA has a bunch of worthless little men, so, and women for that matter. Let's jump into the actual slide. This is an AI picture generated by my good friend Aldi, and it's about what to farm in Star Wars. It's AI generated. That makes me laugh. We're all as confused as this man at times, folks. So that being said, I don't really love the coloring of it. You're gonna have to just deal with it this time, guys. The number one up top is, it denotes what rank everyone's in. I think that there's 14 total. So I put, it's the Eternal Emperor. This is the Eternal, like, flip, and like I want to do him, like, I want to farm him last, and then I want to farm him first and last, and like he and Supreme Leader Kylo I've flip-flopped on a lot because my perspective on them keeps changing. Here's the thing, guys. I don't see that Sith Eternal Emperor or Sith Supreme Leader Kylo have a crazy amount of value other than in the early game. I mean, they're still strong. They're still Galactic Legends. Everyone on this list is great. To be clear, guys, they're all pretty dang wonderful. However, you don't want both of them as your first 2 farms, in my opinion. That's going to be a mistake. But one of them is great for early game. They're both very, very strong early game things. And the tiebreaker for me right now is, it used to be fleets. It used to be like, well, the finalizer is actually really good. You can kill the executor with it, and it's wonderful. That's great. It kills an off-meta team, and now that's not really the case. No one uses finalizer to do that anymore. I'm gonna get a ton of comments of people saying, I do that, I'm fancy, and I'll be like, very good, you are extremely fancy. However, I don't see that at the top level, especially very much at all, because it's not super consistent. And so I've decided that Kylo is going to be toward the end of the list. I'll let you guys find out where exactly he is. But I think there's also other good things about getting Backpack Emperor going early, because he is a strong attacker. He's very strong on defense in the early game. The big thing about him is his requirements are extremely useful. All of them are useful, and he has a lot of overlaps with his characters that are required. So you're going to get useful squads, you're going to get useful just one-off characters, and then you're going to be able to use a lot of those characters in later farms to make it less difficult to farm the like other Galactic Legends and stuff. So really good in PvE. He's gonna just burn a ton of banners though, guys. He's very inefficient on offense unless you just have him go it alone, in which case he has very mixed results. You can kill most things though if you want to waste a ton of banners. Sometimes he's gonna be super efficient. 3v3, he is an absolute monster. He is very, very good, and he's got a cute little backpack and some cute fingernails as well. Executor is the next farm, because the fleet is crazy important, and there is good overlap between Executor and, say, the Eternal Emperor. There's also a lot to be said about Executor being able to counter everything right now. Even so far, Leviathan, though we'll have to see. Leviathan's very bugged, as I kind of alluded to in my intro, but Executor is still a very good ship. I'll be very interested to see its interactions with Leviathan once everything settles, but he has good overlap with Sid the Eternal Emperor. You get who are the required farms from Sid the Eternal that translate to Executor. You get to use what, Piet, and is it just like Boba or something? It's not Boba. It's Darth Vader, I think. So those are really nice. The Executor fleet is very good, and I mean it's all bounty hunters. The kind of the theme as you kind of explore all these different Galactic Legends and the starting things is like you're gonna farm all the bounty hunters, and Executor is you may as well just get all of those out of the way. Anyways, really strong ship. It's going places, guys. It might not, but it does destroy, at least even if you fail on your attack, sometimes you can destroy the enemy's capital ship, which is also quite fancy. So it's also really good in PvE, which of course PvE lately has had an extra level of emphasis, at least from me, because PvE is where we get all of our resources. PvP, it's great, it's fun, and it's also, you kind of just get very similar prizes for it these days. I mean, you're just kind of treading water. It's kind of the hobby of the game right now. And so where's the value in all these things? It's usually going to be found in PvE, and Executor is a big part of that. Jabba the Hutt is the third on my list, guys. After you get you need to get fleets. Fleets are crazy important. Make sure that they're taken care of. Then start working on Jabba. Jabba is really good. And now keep in mind, guys, I'm not placing Galactic Legend Leia, the one that's been announced that we only have a few requirements for. She's not on the list at all. So who knows, maybe she'll supplant him, maybe she won't. But Jabba right now has a crazy amount of value. He's good in the raid, which I know that raid is going away, unfortunately. He's also, though, got a unique event that's required, or that he is required for specifically in the Smuggler's Run 2. And it's going to really set your account up long term for mods, because you everyone needs mods. We all need it. And if you're not, every minute that you're not getting those, every time that event comes around, which is like 3 or 4 to 5 times per month, I think it's variable. I think they just have to use a random number generator to see how many times it shows up. But it's really strong, and it's going to be very, very valuable for your account. If you look at the numbers long term, you're like, oh, well, over the course of the next like year, you're gonna get this much stuff. It's a lot of stuff, and it's staggering how impactful it is for everyone's account. So go get JABBA just for the Smuggler's Run too, almost. But he's also very strong in PvP, very strong in PvE. He's required in Rise of the Empire everywhere on the territory battle. He's required on every single node. He also has a lot of overlap with other galactic legends, such as Jedi Knight Luke. He shares with Jedi Master Luke. So and plus you're gonna want Jedi Knight Luke anyways for lots of different reasons. He's a very strong character, guys, and his requirements are a little expensive, but most of them are fairly usable, and we'll keep on with the theme of getting all the different bounty hunters unlocked. Lots of good overlap there, guys. Starkiller is next. Starkiller is someone I moved way up the list from the last video because he's just going to go really well with all of these things. There's all the characters here are very strong, and that for his farm, I should say. But one of the reasons I moved him up is, first off, we have Darth Talon here, and she's going to be useful with, say, the Eternal Emperor anyways. You're going to have a lot of Sith going and doing a lot of stuff because, say, the Eternal Emperor just interacts with them so nicely, and so you kind of want, like, Darth Talon's going to be an early farm, and then the other farms here are also really good. You're eventually going to want Kyle Katarn, but you're going to want other Jedi to go with, like, your Jedi Revan and other, like, eventually you're going to get Mon Mothma. She's a requirement for that's going to follow up here pretty soon, so Kyle can go there. Dash is going to be a requirement for like Profundity, and maybe, was he already a requirement for JABBA? I don't think so, but now I think he's a requirement for Profundity though. So he, like, Dash is really strong there, and then Mara Jade, of course, like, another one that you're already gonna have Emperor Palpatine because of, say, the Eternal Emperor. Palpatine's a requirement, so you get Palpatine, you get Mara Jade from this, and then you immediately have a Starkiller squad, and you could even just put Kyle Katarn there if you don't have a good Jedi. So there's a lot of, it's like, well, you already kind of have a pre-built Starkiller team in a way. You kind of need to get a light side UFU in there that you need to be planning for. But I think Starkiller makes a lot of sense. He's not as good on PvE. Like, he can do some okay stuff. I use him in Conquest sometimes when we need health steal or things like that for those buffs, but for the most part I leave him alone in PvE. But PvP, man, he is really good, and all these requirements are super duper useful in all the different game modes and all the different squads. Like, he's just a useful guy. He's probably one of my favorite squads to play as well. Now, the Profundity, if there's any truth that's apparent in this game, it's that fleets are crazy, disproportionately important for how many ships there actually are. That they're pervasive. They're in all the different game modes, at least for the most part. I guess Conquest, they haven't just forced their way into Conquest, thank God. Conquest is miserable enough, but the Profundity is currently the best fleet. I mean, I know that Leviathan was just released, and once the bugs get fixed, who knows, but as of right now of the making of this, Profundity is better than Leviathan, and it's a very strong ship, guys, very, very strong. And we've already worked on some of the requirements with Dash and everything, and then we're going to get more, like, you're going to get more of these requirements and stuff with Profundity. This also gives you some time to get some droid brains, to be able to get Admiral Radis up to Relic 9 without having to spend a bunch of crystals, which maybe you still have to, but this is probably the most important fleet right now. Very, very strong, and if you have this and the Executor both on your account, if you're playing GAC or something, those two are going to do very, very well for you long term, and the requirements do feed really well into Starkiller and Jedi Master Luke. KESTIS, this is maybe the one that people are going to fight me the most on, that because he's not an accelerated farm yet, and I get that. If you don't farm him if you don't want to. Obviously, I don't care. I really don't, guys. But I mean, I care in the sense that I'm making a video that I want to be able to, I don't know, instruct or guide, like just tell you guys what my take on it is. But here's the thing: he makes Jedi Master Luke worth using. Like, a lot of Jedi Master Luke stuff right now it's very, very difficult for me to find a good strong use for Jedi Master Luke. Even the like non-galactic legend teams that I want to take down, it's like, well, Zori, if you're not careful, you just lose with Jedi Master Luke. Or if you're facing Tuskens, you just lose. Or there's a bunch of other teams like Malgus, you just lose a lot of times. I know that you can make it work sometimes, but it's very, very difficult, and it's not super consistent. Jedi Cal changes that. I don't think he's intended to be a specifically Jedi Master Luke lifter, but he's going to make Jedi Master Luke good, or better, I should say, and he's also extremely strong on a Jedi Revan farm, which by this point you'll have a Jedi Revan team, and he'll go really nicely on that team. You also have Jedi Knight Luke, and he can go really well with those. You can split the two teams up. You might have Mace by now, because he's super easy to gear and farm. You can make some really good, versatile Jedi teams without using any of the Galactic Legend Jedi to be there, but also all of these things, you can just get all these characters to gear 12, and yes, I know they cost Kyrotech along the way, but they're not crazy bad. And he's all of these farms are, well, some of them are very good. Like Marin is just mind-boggling good. If you have Night Sisters already, you're going to have Marin in some capacity. You should probably be farming this squad anyways. Not to mention, if you're going to get Malicos or something unlocked, maybe you won't get to that point, but Seer and Little Cal are very, very good for that farm as well. Now, the next after this is the lead-in to GRUMPFACE. Luke, Jedi Master Luke, he obviously is the king of the non-Galactic Republic Jedi, and he's fine in PvP. I'd say that he's probably the weakest Galactic Legend in PvP right now, and that's unfortunate. Like, he's not terrible. Like, he's still a Galactic Legend, but you really have to be careful on what you use with him. And I find myself, after this long time, guys, I used to use him for so much. I just kind of use him. I'm like, well, this is kind of a worthless team, but I may as well just use him. Or I just have to stack all my really good Jedi with him so that I can take out something decent. And I don't love that. Now's not the time to complain about him needing a lifter unit or something, though Cal kind of does fill the void a little bit. GRUMPFACE Luke is just kind of on the decline in PvP, unfortunately. So once we farm him, he is really good in PvE, however. In player versus environment, like he beats all the different Rise of the Empire missions. He's really good in Conquest. Probably like converse to the PvP stuff, like whereas he's kind of the weakest GL in PvP. In Conquest, he's the best one because you can call anyone to assist with his leadership, and that you're able to get kills with weird, unlikely combos. You're like, oh, we need Malgus kills? I guess we'll just put a Sith with Luke and we'll just get kills that way. It seems very silly, but it's really strong. And he also does, at this point, you already have a bunch of his stuff farmed, so you may as well just grab him and knock him out. And then Grand Inquisitor, this is such a tricky one, guys, because the team on its own, so the 5 Inquisitors that you have before Grand Inquisitor, not really worth placing at all unless you just don't want a crazy strong odd defense or something. But once you get Grand Inquisitor, the team starts to be worth something. You can start countering a few things. Not that many things, though. It's good in, I guess, in territory wars, like with all of his Omicrons and stuff. He does actually have a place there. And he's pretty good in PvE on some certain things, but the main draw for him, in my opinion, is once you get Grand Inquisitor, you're going to be able to get into a bigger guild that you're like, hey, look at me, I'm ready to farm Riva. Like, guys, let's all do this. Let's farm Riva together. And because you're going to want Riva eventually. Riva makes everything. In some ways, we should just be calling this the Riva farm, even though that's not really how it works exactly. But like, he's kind of the stepping stone to be able to getting Riva, obviously, but he's also, well, like, you're eventually going to want Riva. Like, not only is she really strong in PvP, of course, she kills most of the Galactic Legends, she does all sorts of cool stuff, I mean, she's just very, very strong on offense, and in some cases on defense, depending on if you get a good read on your opponent or not. But not only is Riva good there, she's also she's like God mode in Conquest, and she's also crazy strong in all of the different Rise of the Empire things, and she's required in all the different Rise of the Empire things as well. Like, this squad does really well on all the different levels. It is very expensive, and it feels really bad until you get Riva. So you have to get him with the long-term view of getting Riva, in which case the squad becomes really strong. And I guess at the end of the day, it's like, well, you can farm 5 characters, including, well, and then a 6th one for Grand Inquisitor, and a 7th one for Riva, and it's expensive, but it's probably a little less expensive than a Galactic Legend, and their impact is actually fairly similar to another Galactic Legend. So I think Riva is probably the one you want to be aiming for at that point. So now we have Mr. Kenobe himself, and he's a tricky one because he's probably my favorite Galactic Legend. I'm not saying he's the best. I think Jabba's probably the best right now, but Kenobe's pretty close to the best still. He counters all the different Galactic Legends just fine, though he struggles against certain, some comps here and there. But the thing is, if you doesn't have Commander Ahsoka Tano, Cat, he is just not nearly as strong. He's just not. He's not. He's one of the weakest Galactic Legends, in fact. In fact, he doesn't kill any Galactic Legend besides like Supreme Leader Kylo, he'll take out, but otherwise, like Cat is, in a lot of ways, he's the lifter unit for Cat, and it's kind of sad. I wish it was different, but if you don't have Cat farmed at this point, that's why I put him at 9th, because it gives you a long time to farm Cat, and once you have Cat, that's great. And then you also need Wat, which if you're not farming Wat on Geonosis, it's going to take a lot of resources to actually farm him through GET3 or whatever you're using. It's a lot to farm that dude, and so it's like 2 pretty rough requirements for him at this point. He is very strong, but he's tough to get, I guess, because if you don't have Cat, you don't really have him, and if you can't get Wat, then you also just can't have him. So go forth and farm these characters, I guess, guys, and then get Kenobe as soon as you want. Now, 10th. So this is, I mean, we're getting toward the end of the list, and we have Leviathan here, and it's going to be one of the best ships. I'm guessing it'll be a better ship than Profanity once they fix all the bugs. But like, I mean, the bugs have bugs at this point. It's a mess, guys. It's an embarrassing, stupid mess of CGs. Yes, I think we should be patient and wait for them to fix it, but they need to fix it, guys. It's not great. There's a lot of issues with Leviathan right now, and it's stuff that they probably could have prevented. This isn't a video to badmouth them, so I guess I'll stop there, but I do think Leviathan's going to be very strong. And normally I'd be like, well, this is the new awesome ship. Let's just put it, like, let's front load it. Like, why are we farming Executor and Profundity before this? But there's one really compelling reason to me. It's not accessible to early game accounts. You can't get Malgus or the Fury Interceptor, both of which are required for Leviathan. If you don't have those, you have to get them through Proving Grounds, and the Fury Interceptor isn't even in Proving Grounds right now. You can still get part of it from Conquest, but like, it's going to be a very, very long and difficult process for any new player to actually even try to get Leviathan. Not to mention, a lot of these other ships are pretty difficult to farm on nodes that aren't really that fun to farm on, and like that combined with its lackluster performance currently, just makes this ship number 10, I guess. Like having the ship will make, like, it's still a pretty good fleet, all things considered, but it's not as good as its investment is right now. I hope they fix it, but even when they do fix it, it's like early players aren't going to get it, so that's why it's where it's at. Lord Vader, he's still really good. He's aging pretty well, honestly. Like Datacrons, it was like they created him with Datacrons in mind, because he was struggling a little bit. Then Datacrons came out, and it's like, oh my gosh, there's so many stats that he loves on Datacrons. He is just crazy powerful. And a lot of times it's like, man, I can't even use this counter anymore because he's too strong. Right now with this Datacron set, he's very, very strong. He's required on a few different nodes in Rise of the Empire, so that is one factor that you want to look at. All of his requirements are pretty good. Bad Batch are great, but a lot of them are going to cost a lot of Cairo, and he is the most expensive Galactic Legend, and he doesn't really play like he's the most expensive. Like, it's like, well, yeah, he's good, and he is aging well. But at the end of the day, I think that like Kenobe has way more utility than him. Even, I mean, a lot of the earlier, most of the Galactic Legends, I would like to use more than him. It's kind of stressful to use on offense because he builds so slowly. It's like if our timer, if we could select like one fight to have 10 minutes of fighting, then Lord Vader might be the best Galactic Legend. But he just ramps up so slowly. Sometimes you just can't get to where you're trying to go. He is pretty good though. Dr. APHRA, she's honestly, she's still really good. Like, we're getting this is out of 14, and she's still really good, guys. She's just not required for anything, and it's like, if you don't farm her right now, there's no reason that you're not getting bit for any reason. Like, eventually that might bite you. I'm guessing eventually they'll tie her requirements into something else, or maybe make her a requirement. But right now, she's just like, well, if you have her, then great. She's awesome. She kills like most of the Galactic Legends, including Lord Vader and Jabba. But otherwise, like, what else does she do? Like, what is she needed for? You don't need her for Rise of the Empire. She does fine there. She has a couple nodes there, in fact, requirements, but they're like non-vital ones. And so there's just like nothing compelling us to get her, except it's only 4 characters, and all the characters tend to be pretty good. Sana's not that great, but the other 3 are pretty good. Obviously, 2 of them go with her, but yeah, she makes your roster better, but you don't really need her. Unfortunately, you just don't. Sorry, APHRA. I think you're great, but not that great. Now we have Rey as the penultimate one, and I mean, if it wasn't for Kenobe, like, Kenobe's my favorite GL probably to use. I think Rey is probably my second favorite. She's got so much versatility. She does so well in both PvP and PvE, because her mechanics really keeps everyone alive, and her kit helps her age really well. There's a lot of different aspects of her kit that makes her really strong, and I really like her. She is very strong. The only problem is there's like no overlap in her character requirements, and so you have to you're like, man, I have all the Galactic Legends. It must be pretty easy to farm Rey. And then you look at it, it's like, oh, there's this whole list of random crap that I just haven't farmed at all. This is crazy. I don't need any of this stuff for anything else. There's no overlap, and so even though she's really good, and her lifter unit's really good, though he's really tough to get now because he's a conquest character, and Zori was just recently released to make a lot of these requirements a lot better. And in a lot of ways, Zori is kind of turning heads in a way. Like, I mean, she already turned Poe's head, but otherwise, she is just a very strong, like, that team is really strong and really cool. But, I mean, the Zori team is kind of a luxury team as well as all of these other ones. And so, at the end of the day, Rey just kind of gets pushed to the back. Unfortunately, I really like her. But the fleet that her characters make is like one of the worst fleets in the game. It's still useful for the most part, but I'll go months without using Radis. And so unfortunately, Rey just kind of gets pushed out. She's good. She's very good. but she just doesn't fit in with all of the other Galactic Legends that kind of overlap their requirements. Okay, and then finally we have Supreme Leader Kylo at the last, because you get terrible banners on offense in PvP with him. You put him on defense, and a lot of different things counter him, and like he's good. Sure, he is good. He's a Galactic Legend. He ramps really well. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying he and Rey have the same problem. They don't share overlap with anyone. He shares like what, like what, Emperor Palpatine, is that it? He probably, I guess now the Sith Trooper, the Red Trooper, is also a requirement for Leviathan, so that kind of gets him a little bit closer. But overall, like, he counters a lot of things in 3v3. He's very strong. Like, he'll counter everything in 3v3, but I don't really care about him like one character who counters everything in 3v3. Like, so does Jabba, so does Rey, for that matter. Like, most of the Galactic Legends, so the Eternal Emperor mostly does. There's a lot that all of these different GLs counter in 3s, and 5s. He'll counter Lord Vader. He'll counter Jabba sometimes, though. I've noticed a lot of people saying, no, it always works every time. You can kill Jabba with him every single time. I've noticed that that's not actually their experience in GAC. I keep looking at their history when they're not looking, and I'm like, oh, look at you. You're not winning every time. Even if you do, you usually lose most of your team. So you're getting bad banners. You put them on defense, and they don't hold. And his fleet's just not good anymore. Like, Finalizer, yeah, I use it to clean things up. I do. I use it, I use it every month. So sometimes, more than once a month. But it's not a great fleet, guys. It's out of date. They released a new ship for it, but hey, Leviathan gets it. So sorry, bud. Also, has anyone ever questioned like how quickly the Knights of Ren just abandoned him? They're like, hey, he's the leader of the Knights of Ren, and then he's like, hey, I'm gonna go try to beat up Rey, and then he loses, and he comes back, and they just try to kill him. Like, what the heck was, like, what the hell, man? He just doesn't inspire much loyalty, so he gets the last the last splot. And with that, folks, I think this video is over with. I'm curious to know what your farming order is. What do you think the best way to approach things are? I'd be very interested to hear, guys. Thank you all so much for watching, and remember that in all things, Xaereth prevails. Take care, guys.